First, I'd like to thank the Kingsway Legion for having this wonderful event here, as well as the opportunity that's been offered to me to do this by the Edmonton United Services Institute. As David had said, finding unexploded ordnance. We found some in our P-39 restoration project. As part of the Alberta Aviation Museum's vision and mission, our main mandate is to preserve and conserve historic artifacts. Now, ours tend to be on the rather large scale, but it doesn't matter. Large or small, it's the main focus for the museum, and we are fortunate to have a very large restoration area just to do that. As you can see in this picture, there is a large amount of space with a lot of projects ongoing. There's always projects going on in any type of process at any given time. You will see the nose of a 767. You will see two, looks like tables. That is our project that just started recently. It's a Lego project. We are recreating our entire hangar in Lego. The hangar alone is about 35,000 pieces. And then to top it off, we thought we'd go the extra mile, and we are going to recreate all of the aircraft that we have on the collection floor in Lego as well. So it's going to be quite the process. Moving forward, for today's presentation, we're going to be looking at one of our current projects, which is the restoration of a Bell P-39 Airacobra. Now, this photo is one of the two Airacobras that we have in restoration currently. This particular hull of an aircraft is owned by our past curator, Lech Lebedowski. This is the test fit aircraft for all of the P-39 panels, parts, doors, you name it, that will be put onto the other P-39. The other P-39 is also it is owned by the Reynolds Foundation out in Wetaskiwin. So this fuselage is the one for the test fit. This is the aircraft that will be complete when it's done out of restoration. And this is the aircraft that we're going to be focusing on today. Early variants included wing guns of 30 caliber machine guns in the wings. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that sits at the intersection of aviation history, military engineering, and modern day safety practices. Finding ammunition in the inside of the wing of the Airacobra, it was definitely an enlightening experience, that's for sure. The P-39 was one of the more unconventional fighters of the Second World War. It was introduced in '41. It featured a mid-engine design, which was not typical back then, meaning that the engine was mounted behind the pilot instead of in the nose. The nose, because of that unusual layout, the engineers decided to install a 37mm cannon, which fired directly through the propeller hub. While typically the nose cannon gets the most attention, today we're going to focus on the wing-mounted guns, specifically where the ammunition was stored, how it was accessed, and why it still can be discovered today, many years later. Early variants typically carried the one 37mm cannon in the nose. There was also two 50 caliber machine guns mounted above the nose, and the two 30 caliber machine guns mounted in the outer wing panel of the wings of the aircraft. The wing guns is what our focus is today. Each wing gun was mounted on the inside outer portion of the wing, forward of the main wing spar, and close to the leading edge. Structurally, the wing is divided into the sections by the ribs, internal vertical supports, and the gun installation sat between those ribs in a reinforced compartment. Now you'll see on that picture, there's an outline of a star where the decal would be. On the far left-hand side, you'll see just a little bit below that machine gun's access panel. That is the area that we'll be looking at today. This is where the ammunition storage. I apologize for such a busy picture, but it was the only one I could kind of see where everything was. The wing guns used a belt-fed system, and for those less familiar, it meant the cartridges were connected together in a linked belt. Quite often you'll hear people say ribbons of ammo. That's typically what they were referring to. It was a flexible chain of ammunition. This belt was stored inside a metal ammunition box that was positioned adjacent to where the machine gun was. Now, from the box, the belt ran through a metal feed chute directly into the gun, and when the weapon fired, the cartridges fed sequentially into the chamber. All spent casings were ejected out the underneath through a port on the underside of the wing. Now, everything was self-contained. The gun, the ammunition box, the feed system, everything was enclosed within the wing structure itself, and it was covered by removable access panels. Now, all the work done at the Alberta Aviation Museum, especially in the restorative part, is done by volunteers. Our budget does not allow for me to hire a multitude of technicians. Now, that being said, a lot of the gentlemen that are working in restoration are retired AMEs, structures, NATE instructors from the Aviation and Avionics program that has moved down to Calgary, unfortunately. They're the ones that are working on these aircraft. In August of 23, the lead volunteer on this project came running up to my desk, which is typically on the third floor of the hangar, and after a very winded and short, brief, broken conversation was, we found a problem and you need to come and deal with it because it's above my pay grade. So, now also keep in mind, these are typically not young people, so here I am hoping that this man does not stroke out at my desk. Help him get back down to a restoration. And this is what he shows me. After we figured out, I took a moment to realize exactly what we were looking at. The first thing we did was to collect the thoughts. There was a lot of things running through my head, as in I had heard the noise for the past number of weeks of them trying to get panels open on this wing of the P-39. There was banging, there was hammering, you name it. So typically, as I don't know about any of you, but I know that if I can't get a nut or a bolt off of something, I tend to get a bigger implement, or I just get rougher with it. So this is basically what these guys were doing, because they had to get this off. They had to get into the panel. Why is there ammunition in this wing in the first place is what I was really starting to question. When I looked at past records on this wing, it had crossed the border not once, but twice with this in there. So it was a bit of a jar, yeah. Next slide, please. The important thing was that the ammunition was not loose. It was still mounted, boxed, and mechanically sort of secured. But you can see over time the corrosion, the structural damage, and the impacts from the hammering. It compromises everything. My next question was, why would live ammunition still be in this aircraft that's more than 80 years old? And we've come to the realization there's several reasons. First, not all aircraft were fully demilitarized after the war, and some were transferred to Allied nations or civilian owners with incomplete removal of internal munitions processes. Second, which is very likely, crash sites. I did learn that the wings that we're using for this P-39 restoration project were from a crash site. And if it's been particularly a cold climate, it can preserve the ammunition remarkably well. Low temperatures slow the chemical degradation and the corrosion. Third, museum acquisitions and private restorations sometimes reveal overlooked compartments, obviously, and that were never opened past post-war. In multiple historic aircraft recoveries, live rounds have been discovered decades after aircraft's first flights, or last flights. This brought us to the most important part of this presentation, the safety. You're looking at approximately between 750 and 900 rounds of ammunition. 30 calibers, rusted together, fused together in some cases, and little pieces falling off of things. Anytime ammunition is discovered in a historic aircraft, it must be treated as live ordnance. Age does not equal safety. In fact, aging ammunition can sometimes become more dangerous due to corroded primers becoming more sensitive. Propellant breakdown can alter internal pressures. Structural corrosion can make rounds unstable to movement. From a military perspective, this becomes an unexploded ordnance scenario. From a civilian perspective, this means don't touch it. The bottom line, procedure is the most important part of this. If ammunition is discovered, you need to stop the work immediately. You need to make sure that the area is secure, which is what we did. Luckily, a lot of the volunteers that were working in our restoration area when this was discovered, many of them had other needs, so they had already left the restoration area, so we did close down, I did close down restoration. And then we secured that it was away from anybody coming in or entering into the area. I started calling people. It was around 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. My initial reaction was, okay, let's call the police department, find out what their process is. To which they referred me to the RCMP down the street. So I called them, and they referred me to Ottawa. So then I called Ottawa, and you know where I'm going. After calling Ottawa, Ottawa referred me to the garrison, which I figured I'd probably end up there anyway. But no, the garrison, they didn't have anybody on staff to handle it. Call Wainwright. So after calling Wainwright, and then at that point I had to leave a message because they were, I presume, out in the field. A gentleman called me back afterwards and said, I have some texts coming back from Wainwright going to the garrison. When they get there, they will be given an order to come and see and obtain all of your wonderful armament. At this point, 5 hours had elapsed. Another issue I was looking at, once these wonderful technicians showed up, they typically just take the whole unit, ammunition box, cartridge, the chute, everything all at once, and they take it and they destroy it. As a museum, I had to really cajole and emphasize I needed the ammunition box and the chute, because in the wing of the P-39, when those are all bolted in, it becomes part of the structural integrity of the wing, which I did not know at the time until we had learned. After a few back and forth, they were fine. One had to go back to the garrison and get some canisters and boxes in order to transport all of the ammunition. They did transfer it. Now, a lot of the aircraft that we have now look like this. But when it gets to us, it very much looks like the very first aircraft that you saw, the carcass of the P-39, where you have half of it missing, big holes in it, bent pieces, and just big gaps in whole sections of it. The adventure of making them look as good as this is definitely worth it. But the restoration is still one of our biggest draws to the museum. And at this point, even finding the ammunition, handling it, getting it all sorted out, it still makes it worthwhile, because now you have this as the end result. Thank you.